Hello, everyone, subscribers and newcomers alike. Um, I haven't made a video in a while, and I was just thinking about some stuff, so I thought, why not share the ideas? So, what I was thinking about is some alternate versions of the Fallout series. The game series, the post-apocalyptic uh, role-playing game series that has the world kind of still taking on like a 1950s aesthetic and stuff. So I was thinking about like different kind of versions of that. Like not like the differences between like Black Isle, I think it's called, the original developers, and like Bethesda and like Obsidian. No, I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm talking about like full on different versions of Fallout with like a lot of big differences. Like, for example, I thought to myself, you know, I think Fallout with a 60s style would be pretty cool. Like, for example, well, before I get to the examples, like, I mean, let me just explain that I like the 50s style, but you know, through like modding and stuff, I've been able to experiment with like a more 60s style. And honestly, I think that kind of style kind of fits better for the post-apocalyptic environment. And now I do understand that like the contrast between like the styles of like the heavily like stylized stuff and like the very happy style of the 50s. It like it does add a certain like value to it because it's very like it contrasts a lot with the very grim reality of the situation. But I also feel like a more 60s style would be pretty good because it would actually fit pretty well. And I don't think it's necessarily any better or worse, like in terms of like between like contrast and like being more fitting. I don't think either one is necessarily better. They both have some great aspects, but like as I explained, I just think the 60s style would fit a bit better. Like imagine like it like let me first let me explain that I mean like a more of a late 60s style. So like, you know, more Vietnam era stuff. So like imagine like having like going through the wasteland and listening to like some of the music that would have been very popular during the Vietnam era. Like I don't know. Like imagine riding a vertibird and like listening to Fortunate Son or something. Or like I don't know, something by Jimi Hendrix all along the Watchtower or something, I don't know. But like you get the idea. And you can have heck, you might not even have vertibirds. Maybe you just have like some kind of weird fucking future Huey. Or maybe you just have literal Hueys, you know? That also kind of ties into my other idea, which is instead of Fallout actually taking place in the future, have it take place actually like at the time that the culture it's based on was prevalent, and have like all that crazy technology come from like, for example, the Roswell crash or something. Like have them like study that shit and like develop whatever technologies and reverse engineer stuff and like just so it's not just America with like fucking lasers and shit. Maybe you could have like Russian or Chinese spies, stealing the stuff, and so it's not just an absolute slaughter for everybody else in the entire fucking world. But yeah, and then at that point, you could still hypothetically have like a war with China. You could have it so like maybe maybe it like kind of ties into like the Korean War, for example. Like for example, in real life, in the real world, I believe it was MacArthur. He actually wanted to nuke the Chinese during the Korean War because if you didn't know, China was actually like really, really, very directly involved in the war, and they came in like after the North itself had been defeated. Like what happened was the North went in, they beat up the South pretty badly, but then the the U.S. and all their buddies came in and pretty much beat the North Koreans, but then the Chinese came because they were not happy with that, and they pushed the line back to where the border between North and South is today. But anyway, that's kind of besides the point. Yeah, MacArthur wanted to nuke the Chinese, and they could have gone into like a full-scale war, but they didn't, obviously. But for the sake of Fallout, let's say they do. So yeah, you have that kind of thing going on, and you can still have everything happen. Actually, I don't know if China had nukes at the time, but maybe you could just make them have nukes for fucking the plot. I don't know. There, you could think of a reason. Anyway, if you had it in the 60s, I also I don't know if China had nukes at the time in the 60s either, but I'd say it's probably more likely that they would, although a war with China is a little bit less likely at that time. But, you know, you could do some alternate history kind of things to make it lead up to it and stuff. You don't have to just like change one detail and then go like, "Oh no, that doesn't work." You can uh you can uh you can do all sorts of stuff. I mean, Fallout didn't just settle for changing one detail, like. But anyway, yeah, with that you could have like all sorts of cool stuff. You could actually have the war with China taking on more of like a Vietnam-esque aesthetic instead of just being a really generic war, you know? Because America, if I remember correctly, the U.S., the United States of America, um, eventually did gain the upper hand in that war. But I'm not exactly an expert on Fallout War, lore, not war. Um, but yeah, that's as I understand it there. So yeah, that's that. And I also thought like it'd be pretty cool to have like Hueys, you know. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but like I kind of like Hueys, and to see him like flying around the wasteland as like an alternative to vertibirds might be pretty cool. Especially since people actually made Huey gunships. I don't believe there's ever been any vertibird gunships. At least nobody made any models for them. I know in Fallout 3 they the Enclave vertibirds were able to do some special stuff, but they all they all look the same. You could at least have some actual differences. But in Fallout 4, the vertibirds don't actually do anything except shoot bullets at people, which is pretty disappointing. I'm not sure if they have like front guns or not, but I know they have a side gunner. And I know that's at least the primary weapon being used, if not the only one. But anyway, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And you could actually have, some pretty cool different stuff going on with like the Enclave, for example. And what is that sound? You guys might not hear it, but I do, because I have my sensitivity really high for my thing, but for some reason it doesn't record it. Xena, what are you doing? Alright, well. Yeah, you could have some cool stuff. And like you could do a lot of different things. Like for example, you could have the Enclave actually take over, but like not like super overtly do their like atrocity stuff, just like only kind of do it behind the scenes. And you could have it like get leaked or something, so you could actually have like like protests and riots and stuff break out among the the populace that they kind of have more or less kind of control over. And you could have scenes like that one university protest where that chick stuck a flower on the bayonet of one of the National Guard dudes. I think they were National Guard. And since they're the Enclave, of course they're gonna just fucking mow everybody down, because fucking the Enclave. And yeah, you can have all sorts of stuff like that. And another thing that this is something that I feel it just doesn't make sense in Fallout. This doesn't really tie into like any of my other ideas. It's just like, why why is Fallout just why is it not just Mad Max? Like it would just make so much sense for people to have and use all sorts of vehicles, but they don't. Why? Like, it's not like it's impossible to do. There's plenty of people with engineering skills. People can make all sorts of freaking generators and stuff. And you're telling me nobody can fix up a car? I know in Fallout 2, you get I don't know how to pronounce it, like chrysalis. I don't know. Probably. Well, it's not spelled exactly like the word chrysalis, so it might not be chrysalis. But whatever. Um, you could have a highwayman from that company, and you can drive it around the good old wasteland. And nobody else does that. No other people use cars or trucks or anything. It's it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense at all. And Fallout should have more vehicles, I think. Well, there's also... Oh, fuck, what's going on? Okay, my screen just, decided to sleep. Okay, nothing bad happened. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there is also, Fallout Tactics, but, uh, that Fallout Tactics has been kind of ignored by the rest of the games. I mean, except for, like, the basic details, like the, Brotherhood, going across, with, like, balloons and shit. At least as far as I can tell. I don't know, I might just be an idiot, and people actually, like, really adhere to the story of Fallout Tactics, but as far as I know, people don't really. So, yeah. I mean, especially considering, like, how big of a detail having, like, a bunch of vehicles is. There's no reason that there would just be a ton of working vehicles in the Midwest and nowhere else. So, yeah. And, oh yeah, this ties into my, previous ideas about it having, like, about it being, in, like, in the past. One thing you could do is, like, you could even combine the two things of, like, the 50s and the 60s. You could have it so, like, before the war, like, mainly the 50s style was popular, but, like, as as the war happened, and, like, it's all these years later, you could have it so, like, the more 60s style is more popular. I just feel like it reflects that kind of society a lot better than, like, 50s music and stuff. Like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, that's definitely a thing in my mind. So, yeah. Also, I would really like if more of the military equipment was more realistic looking. Like, the combat armor in Fallout 4. I mean, I guess the little armor pieces are okay, except for the helmet. The helmet looks like cancer. It looks like it's just so bad. But the overall coloring of the armor is kind of bad. I mean, maybe it's just faded after fucking centuries in the sun, but I I really don't like it. It looks like fucking just stupid plastic, and I don't like it. I would much rather prefer, like, stuff like flak jackets and stuff. And you could still use the helmet that in Fallout 4 is referred to as the Army helmet, but in 3 in New Vegas it was the combat helmet. Um, you could still use that. That now looks decent, but I would put, like webbing over it or something, so it's not, like, plain, like webbing or a helmet cover or both. Because realistically, the military would do that kind of thing, and they would not just have plain fucking helmet surfaces. Like, that was not good for wartime. They didn't do that since, like, the beginning of World War II. Like, they actually realized that, like, having a helmet that, like, was just bare would be really bad if it, like, rained, because the helmet gets shiny and then people can fucking see you from a mile away, which is pretty bad if you didn't realize that. I really think Fallout needs, I think it needs a little bit of a dose of realism. Like, not so much in, like, the aspects of, like, oh, you're hungry, you have to eat, or you're tired, you have to sleep. Not like survival mode realism, but, like, at least design things in a little bit more of a realistic way. Because, like, I mean, in the rest of the Fallout games, it's not as bad, but in Fallout 4, some of the designs are atrocious. Like, have you ever seen the tanks in the game? Even, not just the tanks, the APCs. Actually, every military vehicle in the game is, like, really bubbly. And all of the robots, too. They all look like they're made of, like, glass that somebody just, like, just, just blew. Like, somebody blew glass and decided, you know what? This is a robot. Like, realistically, they would be a lot more. They would have a lot more straight edges. Like, what what these people don't seem to understand is that in the 50s, not everything looked like luxury cars. In fact, most things did not. You know, most military hardware was, well, not just military hardware. Most hardware in general was more boxy and had more straight lines and stuff. Like, it wouldn't be completely devoid of curves and stuff, but it would not be like super smoothly frickin' designed and stuff with, like, all sorts of frickin' bubble shapes and crap. That's something that bothered me. And that's not exclusive to any one of the Fallout games. That's all of them. I mean, I think the Mr. Handy is fine, even though his body is literally just a ball with things on it. But I think it works well enough. But like military robots, for example, would not look like that. I mean, even the Mr. Handy looks more like a solid design than some of the military robots. Like, it's just, yeah, I'm not gonna dwell on that. So, let's see, what else did I have in my mind? Oh yeah, raiders. I don't understand why raiders are always hostile. Like, they only need to be hostile when they're raiding someone. They don't have to murder every single person they see. It, like, don't they fucking use caps to buy things from people? Like, by the game's logic, I mean, you might think I'm an idiot for saying, oh yeah, don't they buy stuff from people? No, you idiot, they're raiders. They steal things, but, like, there's some things that they can't fucking, there's some people they can't steal from and stuff, and there's no reason to murder everyone they see. Like, how do they get new raiders? How do these raider gangs expand? You know, how do they get new manpower? It doesn't make sense. Do they just Are they all just like families? That they just fucking have kids and raise them to be raiders, and that's how they continue to exist? That's stupid. No. Like, you could have like take real life of like real life counterparts to those kinds of people, like pirates. Pirates did not frickin' murder or rob everyone they came across. You know, they were human beings. They didn't just fucking. They weren't just fucking murder robots. They didn't just murder everybody. You know, they had more or less peaceful interactions with plenty of people that they did not murder. And, yeah. That's pretty dumb. I mean, I can understand groups like the Fiends, for example. Their brains are just made of all sorts of extremely hardcore drugs. But like, I would not imagine they're all like that. Because to be honest, like realistically, that would hamper their effectiveness. You know, by a significant amount. So having constantly hostile raiders is a pretty dumb kind of thing. And that goes for the gunners in Fallout 4 too. That even, actually for the gunners, it makes even less sense. Why would a mercenary group just murder everyone? Like, why? What sense in there? What sense is there in murdering a potential client? Why? Why would you ever do that? What kind of retard runs this show? What kind of retards does this retard recruit? Like, what the fuck? Why would you ever do that? There is not even gonna. I mean, even though that's a rhetorical question, I'm not even gonna bother asking because there is no reason. There's no reason to ever do that. And no, I'm not just hating on fucking Bethesda because I have plenty of grievances with the other studios as well. I especially actually hate the original few games. Not because of, like, oh, their storytelling is bad, but, like, I just hate the gameplay. The game, it's the game itself that I hate, not the story behind it, or, like, the designs that they used in it, or, like, whatever style they used. It wasn't about that. It was just the core aspects of the game itself, the mechanics, that kind of shit. I did not like any part of that except for like, the basic kind of shit that they carried over to all of the other games. So yeah, there's that. Um I'm just gonna end it here. So if I have any other ideas, I may or may not put them in another video, or put them in the description of this one, or comment them on this one or something. I don't know. We'll have to see. I usually don't really take action for little things like that. So, I mean, especially not for my YouTube channel. I don't really ever. I shouldn't say I don't really ever, but like I don't really upload very much. So yeah, we'll see what I decide to do, and till then, that's it. I don't know. I don't know what my last phrase should be. I guess I'll just go with farewell.